Hello and buongiorno amici! I'm Peter and here I'm telling you stories about the most interesting European cars of the 80s and 90s. Today we are talking about a car that at first didn't get much customers' approval, but made a great racing career, the Alfa Romeo 155. But before we start, please subscribe to my channel. We are very close to 1000 subscribers and it is very important to get there to help me make new videos. So please hit that subscribe button below right now. And if you already subscribed, thank you so much. Now let's get back to the car. The Alfa Romeo 155 was produced from 1992 to 1998 with an update in 1995, and 195,526 cars were produced in total. It looks like a large number, but the predecessor of the 155, the Alfa Romeo 75, was sold in the number of 375,000, and the successor, the Alfa Romeo 156, had a production run of 680,000 cars. So the 155 with less than 200,000 cars sold was a kind of commercial disappointment for the Fiat Group, which owned the Alfa Romeo since 1986. The reason for that was that the customers thought that the 155 stepped too much away from the ancestry of Alfa Romeo with its traditional rear-wheel drive transaxle arrangement towards the Fiat cars and became just one more Fiat, but very expensive. Too expensive. The later achievements of the car showed that that approach was wrong. But let's go step by step with this story. The Alfa Romeo 155 was first presented in January of 1992 in Barcelona, and the production car was demonstrated in March of the same year at the Geneva Motor Show and went into production after that. The 155 was built on the same platform as a family car Fiat Tempra and a small executive sedan Lancia Dedra. As a result, the 155 shared a lot of engineering elements with the Fiat Tempra. Maybe too many, because many car journalists who reviewed the 155 at the launch were very skeptical about it, feeling that Fiat tries to sell the Tempra in different packaging as a much more expensive Alfa Romeo. Old mid-sized Alfas, like the Alfa Romeo 75 or Alfa Romeo 116 Giulietta, which I have another video about, had a great reputation of fast and perfectly handling cars, which were a real pleasure to drive. They had a great torsion bar suspension and steering, and a very good weight distribution thanks to longitudinal installation of the engine and a rear-wheel drive arrangement with the gearbox combined with the rear axle forming a transaxle. The new Alfa Romeo 155 changed all that. It was a front-wheel drive car with the transversal installation of the engine and the simple McPherson front suspension, and that created its reputation of a not real, fake Alfa Romeo. The absorption of the Alfa Romeo by Fiat was still a controversial, bleeding wound for many fans of the brand at that time. So, such a dramatic change in the engineering approach was another proof of the decay of the brand in their eyes. It wasn't actually like that, but it was perceived like that. It was something like, say, if Ford would put a Mustang Beige on an electric hatchback. Oh, wait. The Alfa Romeo 155 was designed by Ercole Spada of Idea Institute. Ercole Spada also designed such cars as the Fiat Tipo, Lancia Kappa, which I have another video about, the second generation of Lancia Delta, which I also have another video about, the BMW E32, and the glorious BMW E34. And despite being a close relative to Fiat Tempra and Lancia Dedra, the Alfa Romeo 155 visually was very different from them. It had a wedge-like form with sharp angles of the body clearly inspired by the previous models of Alfa, the 75 and Giulietta. The 155 had small headlights, a very distinctive sideline, and a tall rear part with a trunk compartment. It was very different from other roundish soap-like cars of the 90s. It's curious that many journalists and potential customers saw that sharpness as an outdated design stuck in the 80s. But with time it became an iconic look that aged very well and looks great now. And we cannot say the same about many other cars of the 90s which looked modern at that time. In addition, that wedge shape gave the 155 great aerodynamics with a drag coefficient of only 0.29, which was better than most of its contemporary competitors, and even better than the next model the 156 had. So Ercole Spada and Alfa team did a really great job. The 155 was sold as a 4-door sedan only. Fiat discovered the possibility to make a wagon version too, but it didn't make it further than the prototype stage. Inside, the 155 wasn't a very spacious car, but it was relatively comfortable. It wasn't a large car in general, with a length of 440 cm or 175 inches. The driver and the front passenger had enough space, but the space for the rear passengers was rather tight. But the car could accommodate 5 adults for short trips. The seats were comfortable. The front seats had a sporty profile with Recaro seats on higher trim levels. And the steering wheel was from Momo, also a sportish detail, and that wheel was very pleasant to hold in hands, particularly at active driving on a curvy road. The 155 was rather well equipped for its time and its class. The higher trims had power seats with multiple ways of adjustment, a fully automated climate control system, power windows and power mirrors. The trunk was rather large and could accommodate a couple of large suitcases, but it was smaller than you could expect when you looked at the car from the side. You couldn't fold the rear seats, but you did have a small hole for skis hidden behind the central armrest of the rear seat couch. Most of the materials of the interior were good, with soft plastic of the dashboard and quality fabrics. The higher trim levels had leather seats and door trims, and the quality of the leather was very good. It was thick and long-lasting. Unfortunately, the quality of plastic parts and the assembling quality of the interior was far from perfect, which was common for Italian cars of the 90s. So virtually all 155s today have some crickets, rattling and squeaking inside when you drive them. This may be annoying, but you may look at that as some special feature, a unique soul of each particular Alfa. Another problem was with the wiring and electrics. Fiat used low-quality wires, which were very prone to breaking over time. Connectors had a tendency to accumulate moisture inside, and that caused short circuits. And sensors and electronics were very unreliable. When you drive a 155, it is common to see various warning lights on the dashboard coming on and off randomly. Unfortunately, those issues with the electrics and electronics create a rather bad reputation for this very interesting and reliable in all other parts car. In 1995, just after 3 years of production, the Alfa Romeo 155 got a serious update, and the cars after that are known as Series 2 cars. They received new body panels with larger fenders, and that's how they got their second name, the wide body 155. Also, the Series 2 received new bumpers and front grille, and revised suspension and steering. The engineers of Alfa Romeo listened to all critique of the first version of the car, and improved the car significantly. So the wide-body 155s are known for great handling and more interesting driving than the earlier cars. And last but not least, the car received new updated engines around the same time. And speaking of the engines, from the start in 1992, buyers could choose between 4 gasoline engines for their 155. The first 2 engines were inline 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engines with an unusual arrangement with 2 sparks per cylinder, one with 1.8 liter displacement and another one with 2 liters. The 1.8 engine produced 126 horsepower and could bring the car to a top speed of 200 km or 125 miles per hour, with 0 to 60 miles per hour in 10.3 seconds. The 2-liter one had 141 horsepower, a top speed of 205 km or 128 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 in 9.3 seconds. The third engine was a famous Bussa V6 engine, developed by Giuseppe Bussa, with a 2.5-liter displacement. That engine had a beautiful sound and produced 163 horsepower, a top speed of 215 km or 134 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 in 8.4 seconds. And the last engine was another 2-liter inline 4-cylinder one, but it was turbocharged and had 16 valves instead of 8. That engine was derived from the glorious Lancia Delta Integrale, which I have another video about. It was installed on the high-performance Q4 version of the 155, together with the permanent all-wheel drive system of Lancia Delta Integrale and its elements of the suspension. Essentially, the 155 Q4 was a Lancia Delta Integrale in the body of the Alfa Romeo. As a result, it produced 186 horses, a top speed of 225 km or 141 miles per hour, with 0 to 60 miles in 7 seconds, which made it the fastest version of the 155. In 1993, Alfa updated the line of engines for the 155 and added a small 1.7-liter twin-spark gasoline engine with 116 horsepower and a couple of 4-cylinder turbo-diesel engines, one with 1.9 liters and 90 horses, and the second one with 2.5 liters and 125 horsepower. The latter was a rather interesting one, because it produced great torque and decent dynamics for a diesel, a top speed of 195 km or 122 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 in 10.4 seconds. In 1995 and 1996, with the appearance of the Series 2 cars, the engines were updated again, although the previous versions still were installed in some cars until 1997. The 1.8 twin-spark engine got 16 valves and now had 140 horses instead of 126, a top speed of 205 km or 128 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 miles per hour in 10.3 seconds. A new 1.6-liter twin-spark engine with 120 horses briefly appeared in 1996, but was discontinued the same year. The 2-liter naturally aspirated engine also got 16 valves instead of 8, and 150 horses instead of 141, which resulted in a slightly better top speed of 208 km or 130 miles per hour and 0 to 60 time of 9 seconds instead of 9.3. The Busse V6 and the Integrale Q4 turbo engine didn't get any changes and were discontinued in 1997, a year before the end of the production of the 155. All engines could be coupled with a 5-speed manual gearbox. It had relatively long travel of the gear lever, but the gear changing process was sharp and pleasant. The 1.7 and 2-liter naturally aspirated engines also could have a 5-speed automatic transmission, but it was rather rare, and most of the 155s had a manual transmission. To promote the car and to show its capabilities to customers, Alfa Romeo did the same trick that Daimler-Benz did with the Mercedes-Benz 190, which I have another video about. They went racing. Fiat had the resource of racing engineers after withdrawal of Lancia Dedra from rally, so they allocated the team to Alfa to enter the 155 into road touring championships. In 1992, Alfa Romeo built a sport prototype 155 GTA, visually resembling the 155, for participation in the Italian Superturismo Championship. That car had a 2-liter turbo engine with 400 corny ponies, an intercooler with a water jet, a 6-speed gearbox, the transmission and suspension of the Lancia Delta Integrale Evoluzione, and a braking system derived from Formula 1. So it was rather far from the real production 155, but it still looked like the 155 and had the 155 number in its name. That year, Nicola Larini won the championship in that car. Alfa Romeo wanted to build a road version of that car under the name 155 GTA Stradale, but only one car was built, and the project was closed by Fiat's board because of very high production costs. In 1993, Alfa built another car to participate in the German DTM Championship, the 155 V6 Ti. That car had a 420 horsepower V6 engine derived from the Busse V6 one, and the improved four-wheel drive suspension. That car still was a silhouette prototype based on a very different chassis than road cars, but it had a visual resemblance with the road version of the 155, and customers loved that. Unexpectedly for everyone, the 155 Ti won the DTM Championship in 1993 and won 11 races of 20 in 1994, becoming the racing legend. Next year, in 1994, the 155 also participated in the British Touring Car Championship, with a car equipped with a naturally aspirated 2-liter engine producing around 290 horsepower and coupled with a 6-speed sequential gearbox. The rules of the championship were very strict, so Alfa had to produce 2500 road cars with the same equipment as the racing car for homologation. One part of that equipment caused scandalous controversy. Alfa used a special aerodynamic package which included an adjustable front splitter and a large adjustable rear wing. Those elements were crucial in providing additional downforce and improving the car's handling and stability at high speeds. But they were unusual for the BTCC, and despite Alfa followed the letter of rules, other competitors saw this as an unfair advantage and protested. Alfa Romeo told that the spoilers were a part of the homologation program and were supplied with the road cars. But there were some reports that dealerships actually didn't install those parts on real cars, although they were supplied with them. The BTCC organizers eventually decided to amend the regulations mid-season, requiring all cars to use the same fixed aerodynamic parts that were fitted to the production models available to the general public. Alfa Romeo protested that change, and for one race they withdrew from the competition in protest. Eventually Alfa complied with the new rules, but the controversy had already caused a significant stir in the motorsport community. In 1995, the 155 prototypes couldn't get significant results in racing due to problems with new sophisticated electronic systems. But the next year, in 1996, Alessandro Nannini again took the third place in the German DTM. The sport achievements of the 155 were unexpected for the public and competitors, but they did a great job in promoting the 155 and the Alfa Romeo brand, showing that its capabilities were in line with German competitors, and sometimes even greater than theirs. That helped a lot with the sales in Europe, particularly in Germany. Okay, sport is sport, but what kind of a car a regular Alfa Romeo 155 was on the road? Well, it was virtually perfect, particularly the cars of the Series 2. Despite bearing the label of a fake Alfa, as some old-school Alfa Romeo purists said, it was a very capable and interesting car that gave drivers a lot of fun and satisfaction. It was relatively light and had great torque and decent dynamics, especially in the Q4 Turbo and V6 versions. While it wasn't the fastest car of its time on the straight line, it was a very maneuverable and joyful car that perfectly handled in corners. It had beautiful sound. It was very predictable in good sense, stable and safe even for very aggressive driving styles. The steering was a little too light, but it was very precise. The 155 was a car that loved corners, a car born to shine on curvy country roads and mountain serpentines. It was a beautiful design artwork and engineering masterpiece. And it was a piece of concentrated fun, a shot of pure adrenaline. The story of the 155 shows us a surprising bipolarity. A rather cold acceptance by the customers and relatively low production numbers in a strange manner were combined with racing successes and later appreciation of the car by modern car enthusiasts. That car changed a lot for Alfa Romeo. Someone said that it betrayed the classic principles of the brand. But I see it as a beautiful, capable and very important connecting link, a bridge between two glorious, although very different parts of Alfa Romeo history, the preceding Alfa Romeo 75 and the succeeding Alfa Romeo 156. Unlike the 75, which was sold in the United States as Alfa Romeo Milano, the Alfa Romeo 155 was never imported to the US during its production. But all those cars are older than 25 years now, so you can legally import them to the United States and enjoy them here. In Europe, the prices for the 155 in running condition start now from 2-3,000 euros and go up to 15,000 euros for regular cars depending on mileage, condition and grid of the seller. The Q4 turbo cars may go from 20 to 40,000 euros. Not so cheap, but still way cheaper than the Lancia Delta Integrale, which shared the engine and the drivetrain with the Q4 155. The 155 drives very differently than the Delta due to heavier weight and longer wheelbase, but still it has the same glorious rally-related engine and transmission, and almost similar suspension. I believe that good examples of the 155 will further grow in value over time, because it looks like they get more and more well-deserved interest from car enthusiasts and collectors. Well, thank you very much for watching. If you drove or owned an Alfa Romeo 155, please tell me about your experience in the comments below. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, I really appreciate it. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please subscribe to support the channel and watch new interesting stories that are coming soon. Grazie mille amici, and see you next time!